Hello, Suchi.
Hello.
So I'm under the impression that you are the one who found the death certificate of Thomas Highflyer. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
What information was on the death certificate? What did you find?
Well, it was quite interesting because it's quite an old certificate. What hit me the most was what was down as his occupation. He was only a little boy, he was about 13 years old, and it said son of an African name unknown. He died of dropsy, which is when your body swells up and fills with fluid.
That sounds quite a drastic death, but was that common? Or?
It was common, but perhaps not so much with youngsters, perhaps older people. But then if you think about he'd been on a ship for 2 years, even though he was well looked after and his every need was catered for when he came back, his health would have been pretty bad. I mean, the captain himself had died 6 months previously. His health wrecked by being in the anti-slavery squadron.
Another piece of research you found is the school book. From when Thomas Highflyer attended, is it St Mark's in Brighton?
Yes, it was a school log. But what was really interesting was some students would come in the daytime and then leave to go to work or do other things in the afternoon, and then the children that worked in the morning would come to school in the afternoon.
Is it common that children had to work in those times?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, children would have heard the stories about chimney sweeps.
And do you know if Thomas was one of the Labour students, one of the working students?
Don't know, but I presume he wasn't, because he was living in a nice area, in a nice house, and was supported by a wealthy family.
Do we know where he died? Or?
He died in a house in Kemp Town.
Oh, wow.
And his death was registered by a gentleman called Henry Thompson.
On Thomas's death certificate, it mentioned that this is where he died. What do we know about Thomas's life here?
The 1861 census, it clearly states that Mr. Thompson was the head of the household here.
Yeah. And who else was in the house?
In the house was his wife Eliza.
Okay.
And they had a lodger, and they also had a niece called Mary. Thomas was very loved and he was very well looked after. They said that Eliza looked after him like her own son.
So it was a big deal for Thomas to be at school around that time?
Oh, indeed. In 1868, education wasn't compulsory. If you want to be educated, someone had to pay for you to go.
Wow, so that's quite a big deal for someone coming off a ship, being accommodated and then being paid into education.
Oh, indeed. It's quite unusual, especially for an enslaved boy to be educated in school.
This is the school that Thomas attended between 1868 and 1870, is that right?
The same school, yeah, but different site.
On record, there's quite a lot to suggest that Thomas was very popular.
I read an article in the church missionary book, and that was one of the points that they brought up, that the welcome he had was that the teacher announced to the children that we have a black boy coming to stay with us, and we want to show him that children with white skin and blue eyes can be kind and gentle to a dark-skinned stranger.
And what do you think his experience was like as a young black boy coming into a white Christian school?
If someone comes into class, for instance, in school, and I'm the only black child in the school amongst white children, and they start talking about slavery or anything like that, I'd be rather embarrassed because all eyes would be on me.